Hello everybody and welcome to today's episode of the Chris Pritchard Cycling News Show. Finally, it happened. The Tour de France is underway. Stage 3 is happening as we speak. Now, I'm going to be bringing news as soon as stages finish, as soon as I can get videos edited. If you're one of those people who enjoys watching the highlights, who avoid social media for the results, then I don't mind if you unsubscribe from that notification bell. Don't unsubscribe from the channel, just the notification bell, because I don't want to be spoiling other people's Tour de France experiences. I want to bring the news as quickly as I can, but not at the detriment to your enjoyment of the official highlights. So I don't mind. I'm not going to be offended if you just want to unclick that notification bell. And with that being said, let's get on with news. I say all that, but don't forget, if you've not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscription button. At least the video will then be in your subscription box, so when you're ready to feast on some more Tour de France news, you can do that. You can get involved in the chat down below and give us your opinion on everything that's going down on the Tour de France. Right, so much to talk about, but rather than go through the normal news format, we're doing something a little bit different. Over the next 3 weeks, we have the pleasure of the company of Laura Fletcher from the Peloton Brief. Hey, listen, it was about time that we brought in someone into the news show who has a valid opinion within the cycling industry. And who better to talk about it than a young lady who lives and breathes the pro Peloton. So it's time to get on with the first brief chat with the Peloton Brief. That's rubbish. If you've got any suggestions for what we should name this feature for the next 3 weeks, then leave your comments down below. But Laura, it's time to decipher the news of stages 1, stages 2, and La Course, and any other business. Oh, maybe we should call it that. Oh, any other business? Then when you used to go into meetings and that was any other business. Yeah, I hate my job and I'm leaving. Anyway, Laura, take it away.
Hi, I'm Laura. I run the Peloton Brief. I live in Girona. I've been working in cycling for 10 plus years. Work at the races, run independent media, work with riders. I'm a photographer, PR person, media person. And I'm here talking to you today about the Tour de France.
So I think it's fair to say that your opinion is probably more valid than mine right now, right?
Although my opinion is always tainted, because when you know people, it's harder to be unbiased. So
but that's a good thing, I think, because if you hate them, you really hate them. And if you don't, then you will say nice things.
This is true. This is true.
So we might get some gossip in the next 10 minutes.
We might. We very much might. So
right,
I'll try to upset anybody in the with my harsh opinions. So.
Listen, this channel's all about trying to upset as many people as we can for the entertainment of other people. Before we get into the tour, let's talk about La Course.
Okay. I think that might have been the most exciting stage of the Tour de France this year.
I think it could be by the end of all 21 stages as well. How amazing was that?
Well, it was incredible to watch, and it's really good to see the result as it was, because I somehow get the feeling that sometimes the girls, it must be a bit frustrating to go into a race and just feel like Annemiek is always going to win. And I mean, Annemiek is just incredible, but with the women's calendar, especially this year, there isn't a lot of overlap between races, which means that if you're Annemiek and you want to do every race on the calendar, then you pretty much will. There aren't a ton of opportunities for races that she isn't going to be at. So you can be in incredible form as a female rider and you just feel like you're going in to maybe get a podium place. So I think that result was probably really important for the entire women's peloton, just to actually say, okay, right, like, Annemiek is incredible, but she is beatable. So
exactly. But then you look at the next person who you think is just as unbeatable in Marianne Vos, and you think as soon as she sets off and goes, it's hers. Lizzie had left it too late, and it's clearly going to be Vos's. But it's rare that you see that happen, that someone goes and looks so strong, puts a gap in like she did, and then Lizzie just clawed her way back. And even just coming over the line where the painted sponsors are, it looked like Lizzie had given up. She kind of stopped pedaling.
And I mean, Lizzie did have the advantage of having a really strong teammate in there with Elisa, who could have also won.
Oh, yeah.
Two riders that are incredible in the hills, but also have a strong kick on them. So they did go in with the strength in numbers and team tactics, and I think that showed how important that is in the end. So
definitely. Right, let's move on to the men.
Okay.
Like where the bloody hell do you start with this weekend?
Oh my goodness!
Where,
it was like watching a classic for the first day.
it was insane.
There was a rumor going around on Twitter last night, which I don't believe is true, but that one of the publicity caravans had it was like a soap sponsor, and that they were spraying soap bubbles all over the road beforehand.
Oh.
Which I think has been proven untrue, but still, could you just imagine if that just added in any way to the slipperiness of the road, if they just coated it in a thin layer of dish soap or laundry detergent or whatever it was?
That would have been amazing if that was the case.
I mean, the thing is, it was bound to be a crazy start to the Tour de France. You don't have a straight up flat sprinter stage to start with. You've got some kicks in there. You've got some descents. You've got crazy roads. It's not your sort of typical first day straight promenade, almost, as you would call it.
Mm-hmm.
It's also probably less so at the Tour de France because the Tour de France, the lineup is incredibly strong this year. You don't have as many guys that are maybe injured or had an incredible Giro and have decided to sit out the Tour. It's really, the teams are the best of the best. And I think that a lot of the team management, they do have a feeling perhaps that maybe the Giro and the Volta won't happen. So it's not that they're saving guys for that. It's be very possible to do a Tour Vuelta double as well. So I really think you've got the best of the best at the Tour. Outside of that, the other thing that's been happening is that because of the way this year has gone, normally by September 1st, contracts are pretty much sort of being summed up and done. 90% of the guys will be re-signed or signed elsewhere for a following year. And this year, it just hasn't happened yet, which means that the nerves are really high in Peloton. And it's one of the reasons the speed is just so high, is that, guys are nervous. They really want to get a result. They have had nothing to show for this year. If you're in a contract year, you are bound to be super, super nervous right now. So
yeah, definitely good point. That I never actually thought of that. Well, that maybe that means Christoph's safe for another few years then.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if he was in contract here, and I can't keep track of it, but
no, neither can I.
It is. I mean, you can see it a lot in some of the smaller races too, because guys are just fighting so hard to get a result, to get anything. And the thing is, most of the teams are signing late. You've got a few fluke teams that are sort of in there early. They're probably paying more than market value for what they're getting, but it's going to happen late. Contracts will happen after the Tour de France. Usually, staff contracts are done by now. I know of multiple teams who haven't done any staff contracts yet. It's just how it is this year.
Yeah,
so.
it's a crazy year. One thing that hasn't changed, Julian Alaphilippe in yellow.
Yeah, so...
It's insane. You couldn't write it.
What's insane to me is that everybody seemed to know exactly when he was going to go, but it's just incredible that the other teams, maybe they don't try to stop him, maybe they don't want to, but it's an interesting case, isn't it? Because Alaphilippe isn't necessarily targeting winning the Tour de France, so he takes this opportunity, whereas teams like Jumbo, Ineos, they're so focused on winning that to give Julian 10 seconds now, it's not the end of the world to them, because the Tour de France is won by minutes, not by seconds. So,
yeah, but still, they saw what happened last year. You'd think, well, let's just check it a little bit. But yeah, like you say, he said he was going for stage wins, but then at one point, Adam Yates said that. But then you think, because he was riding really hard on the front. Hold on one second, is he riding for stage wins, or is this? Do you think they go into it and say, "Oh, we're riding for stage wins," but really? They're calling everyone else's bluff.
I think for Adam, I think he probably saw the opportunity that if he could get over to Julian and Julian was going to power through to sit on, he might have taken, a little bit of time on the GC going into the next days, which for a guy like Adam can be very good to just have a little bit of an advantage, because he's not the top 2 or 3 in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for him, he was probably looking more into getting a bit of time bonus, but they did come back really close into it, so it hasn't actually changed the time that much in the end. But if Julian had gotten a minute up on them, to be honest, the ride of yesterday, I think we're all going, "Whoa, Mark Hershey! Who is this kid?" I think a lot of people, to be honest, were rooting for him, because it's the sort of thing that you really want to see. You want to see this young guy that has just the totally unexpected win, the totally. All of a sudden you're in yellow and you're like, whoa. And I think, was it last year that who was the guy from Jumbo that was in yellow at the beginning of
Oh,
Mike
Mike Turnison.
Tennyson, yeah. Like this completely unexpected result is just kind of brilliant. And it's to me what kind of makes Grand Tours just this beautiful thing is that in the 3-week race, you do get these chance guys at the start. And Lucas Postelberger was wearing the Maglia Rosa in the Giro. That was absolutely brilliant as well. I mean, that's a career-defining thing for him. And these guys don't always get tons and tons of opportunities. So I would have liked to see Hershey win, but you know.
Hey, listen, another 10 or 15 meters. He was closing in. He was strong towards the end, but Alaphilippe in France, the chance to be back the chance to be back in the yellow jersey, it's not going to happen.
We can talk about the great Michael Matthews, no non-appearance at the tour, and the rumors started last night actually that he's going back to Mitchelton. Actually, I saw some rumors online last night, but
it's not a rumor. It's confirmed now.
Oh, is it? Oh shit! You probably caught that thing because I haven't.
No,
today.
It's fine. Yeah. It was just this morning, going back to Mitchelton.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's an interesting one. You sort of look at a rider like Michael Matthews, just won, Plouay Breton Classic, incredibly hard race, 250K race. I was out there actually last week, and it's actually a really good race that normally where it sits on the calendar, it gets like, not so much attention. Like it's sort of like everybody knows Plouay is a good race, but it's after the Tour. It's sort of just before the Vuelta.
Yeah.
It's like this weird one that sits in a funny place in the calendar, and it is in the middle of nowhere. Like I mean, it's this race. People are like, "Where are we going?" And they fly 3 hours away to Nantes, which is the closest airport. I chose to drive there, which may have been a bit of a mistake, but
wow.
I mean. But like he had an incredible win there, incredibly strong showing, and you sort of go, well, why isn't he at the Tour? And I guess things don't always go the way you want them to with teams. Like you didn't really see it coming because he's been there for so long. But I mean, there's a lot of expectation and pressure on riders in teams, especially when they're the top guy to perform, and what that expectation is and whether that expectation can be met. And it's been a stressful year, and I just who knows, mental health. Yeah,
I think he'll go back there, and I think he's still got some wins in him. Clearly,
he's incredibly strong, and he's also he's very young still. Is he 29?
It feels like he's about 39 though. It feels like he's been around for years.
But he was good, and he was so young.
Yeah.
So he's still got some time in him. And you sort of I think he'll probably be happy there. It's, we've definitely seen some changes at Mitchelton with which Yates is leaving.
Yeah.
Oh,
God. Is it Adam? Is Adam? Simon.
One of
Adam?
them.
One of them.
I can never remember which one is leaving. So, and, and Daryl's leaving, and Daryl, and he was probably one of, when Michael Matthews was at Mitchelton, he was there with two other riders who were incredibly talented and very similar to him in Simon Gerrans and Daryl Impey. So it'd be very hard to be on a team, and especially when, like, Michael is an incredible sprinter, but he's a hilly sprinter. There's like a handful of races on the calendar that are like the races for him. And Daryl and Simon, it was the same races. So you're looking at the Canadian races, Plouay, sort of Cadell's race on the right year, although Michael never did the Australian races, and the Ardennes, and the opportunities there, it's not as ever present. And you can be an incredible sprinter, but you're not going to outsprint the big sprinters, and you're good on the climbs, but you're not going to outclimb the good guys. So you're not looking at a lot of possible stage race wins unless you've got a very specific stage race that isn't 100% that parcours. So I understand that, he at Mitchelton before, he didn't have the opportunities because he was sharing that with, these similar riders. And to go back there now when Daryl's leaving and Simon's been retired, it makes a lot of sense. So
definitely. Right. I've taken up enough of your time.
Can I give you a podium prediction for today on first, second, third, and we can see how wrong I get?
Okay, yeah. Okay. Laura's prediction for today's stage. Stage number 3.
This is recorded beforehand. So
you just have.
Okay. Nitzlo first. He's bloody flying. Nitzlo, Bennett, Peterson.
I love it how you said, can I give a prediction without even thinking that you had a prediction. You put yourself on the spot.
I know. I like this though. I want to see how wrong I am. It also gives me like a good, like, now I'm going to be like, all right, I really want Yakumo to win today because, you know, I predicted that. So let's see if I get it right. I'm going to keep a running toll till the end of the tour.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Who messed up who did worse in the podium predictions.
Right. We will chat again on Wednesday.
Perfect.
Laura, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
And then finally, let's talk about stage 3. Spoiler alert, if you've not seen stage 3 and you're waiting for the highlights, do not watch this part of the show. Thanks for watching. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next one. If you want to see what happened in stage 3, wow, boring. It was. For a lot of the day, it was a very, very slow, very, very boring stage. So, Jérôme Cousin was essentially the lone breakaway rider of the day, spending the majority of his time up the road on his own. Yeah, it wasn't the most entertaining day. When there was one rider up the road, you knew essentially that this was going to come down to a bunch sprint, and oh my God, what a bunch sprint. Before we get into that, let's take a moment of silence for Anthony Perez. Poor lad was going to be donning the polka dot jersey, but bad luck struck, and unfortunately he came down, injured himself to the point where he had to retire. And it turns out, although there's no footage of it as yet that I've seen, he got a puncture, went back to the car. As he was chasing back to the peloton, going through the convoy, he ended up hitting a team car, his own team car, and subsequently breaking a collarbone and potentially ribs. The diagnosis of his injuries are still not yet fully known. There's a good probability that collarbone is broken and potentially with it a couple of ribs. So instead of heading to the podium, donning that polka dot jersey, he's getting his arm put in a sling and he's out of the Tour de France. But back up at the sharp end, Jérôme Cousin was caught with around 16 kilometers to go. Then it was just a steady ramping pressure all the way to the finish. Deceuninck Quickstep took up the challenge of bringing the peloton to the finish, where reports were coming in that the riders will be having to sprint it out into a block headwind, which meant this was a perfect opportunity for those brave riders who could surf the wheels, not necessarily have to be in their train, because with 350 meters to go, you'd be stupid to take on that sprint. And one rider in particular absolutely nailed it. With around 350 meters to go, Sagan hit the front. As soon as he put his head into the wind, that was it. He was going backwards straight away. Then you thought, Sam Bennett's. It's definitely Sam Bennett's this. And nobody would have predicted at the moment that Peter Sagan went, that Caleb Ewan, who was not even in the TV shot at the time, would go on to win the stage. He rode a perfect race, just about dodging every single challenge that was thrown at him. We had a rider cutting across to the left of him. He had to make a split decision to go down the inside of Peter Sagan, and that proved to be the move. If he'd have gone the other side of him, he would have got boxed in, potentially wouldn't have been able to sprint for that victory. It would have been Sam Bennett's. However, he took one of the most audacious moves down the inside of Peter Sagan on the right-hand side. And then he used that momentum to come out from behind Sam Bennett, back across Sagan, and take victory. It was one of the most tactically perfect races I have ever seen. It's going to be one that's talked about for a long time, reminiscent of Mark Cavendish back in the day. Instead of sitting on that wheel, sitting on that train, waiting for everybody to pull off and then just sprinting for victory, he had to work for it. Not only was it into a headwind, he had to just be as brave and as patient as he could be waiting. But not only that, he had to get himself up to the point where he could actually sprint. And he must have only been out in the wind for 50, 75 meters, if that, and it was enough to secure the victory. Sam Bennett still looking in great form, and I think had there not been that block headwind, we'd be looking at a slightly different winner. And there you go, we're back up to date with everything that's going on in Tour de France. We'll be back again tomorrow with a preview of stage 5, and we're going to look back on what happened during stage 4. If you've enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you've not done already, and if you fancy it, you don't have to this for the next 3 weeks, but if you fancy it, hit that notification bell so you know when we go live with our videos. And if I've spoilt it for anybody, I'm so sorry. Not sorry. I'm kind of glad that you came to me first. Now go and watch the highlights. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Boosh.